Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and for the first time viewers, welcome to the channel. I have to thank all of you guys for your support and the very positive comments and the messages I received about you guys finding the content beneficial. I feel like that is truly the objective of the channel, and that is what gives me the motivation and the drive to keep going and continuing producing this content for you guys. I recently started residency, and we are still in the orientation phase, and we've been doing a lot of different modules and trainings that we need to complete before we start residency. So it's been busy. It's of course been busy, and there's been a mix of emotions. Obviously, we all of us are very excited about this phase in our lives. This is something most of us have been dreaming of, and it is just so amazing to finally be on the verge of starting this new chapter in our lives. But at the same time, there's obviously a sense of anxiety, a sense of nervousness, because definitely residency in the beginning is a steep learning curve. There'll be a lot of things we'll have to learn. There'll be a lot of things we'll have to improve as individuals and as medical professionals. And certainly the first few months are going to be a steep learning curve where we have to adapt to very different working environments. Expectations are high. The expected results from us are pretty high and important. And so far, what I gather from the advice I've received from my seniors in the program and in other program is that residency is so much more than just clinical experience or clinical skills and clinical knowledge. These things are important, but there's a lot more that goes into being a very good resident. Residency is also a lot about being a good person, someone your co-workers and colleagues can depend on, someone who's there when needed, someone who can be a leader when needed, when circumstances demand for that, and truly someone who can understand others and be a good communicator also when needed. So there's a lot of room for improvement, and I feel like the people who are on this journey of residency application invest in becoming a good person, because that's going to do you a lot of good. Anyone can be taught clinical skills and clinical knowledge, but not everyone can be taught how to be a good person. So again, being a doctor means being a good human first, a good person first, someone who sincerely understands, someone who sincerely connects with the suffering of others, and who has that sense of selflessness to be there for others when they need them. Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about USCE, United States Clinical Experience. It's one of the hottest topics that goes around amongst match applicants, and definitely one of the most stress causing, anxiety causing, and nerve-wracking parts of my own residency journey, I have to say. And I understand it is the same way for a lot of you guys out there, and that is why today I'm going to be breaking this topic down into simpler pieces, simpler to digest, and hopefully you will benefit from this video. So basically, I'm going to be taking you guys through why you should do USCE, when you should do USCE, and how you can apply to it, where you can find USCE, and finally give you guys some advice and some tips from personal experience. And being in residency now, I look back and I see how one can optimize this opportunity that one gets when doing a USCE. So without any further delay, let's get into it. So I think the first most obvious question to ask is, what is USCE and why is everyone talking about it, and why do I need to do it? So USCE is US or United States Clinical Experience. It's essentially any clinical experience you gain in the US, and there are very good reasons why it's considered a very important part of the residency process. But I will take you guys through the types of USCE in a while. Before that, let's talk about why you need to do USCE. If you look here at the NRMP match data, you'll find this on their website. I'm gonna share the link in my description. You should, if you're applying to residency, you should go through their data. It's data basically from the previous match, and takes you guys through a lot of it. It gives you so many different statistics and data about the match, the different specialties and what factors the program directors looked at, and so many other pieces of information that can help you plan your application and can help you see where you stand, amongst the applicants. So right now I have the program directors survey results open that NRMP published on their website. And if you look at figure 1, which basically shows the factors that programs kind of took into consideration when selecting applicants to interview, you'll notice that letters of recommendation in the specialty, was the second most commonly cited factor. And if you look at the average rating, it's also pretty high. It's 4.3 out of 5. So that essentially tells you like LORs are really just the second most commonly considered factor after step 1 when extending interviews to applicants, and that kind of gives you an idea about how important LORs can be. Secondly, if you look at figure 2, these are the factors that programs considered when ranking applicants. And in this case, you look at those few factors that are up high: interpersonal skills, interaction with faculty during interview and visit, interaction with house staff during interview and visit, feedback from current residents, and LORs. All these top factors are directly linked to USCE. These things happen through the interviews and also happen through a USCE. You have the opportunity when doing a USCE to interact with the faculty, interact with the residents, and the residents can directly report your performance and who you are as a person and your personality to the program director. If they are considering you as a potential applicant, or you are considering them as a potential program you would want to apply to. So again, to summarize, why you need to do USCE: to get that US clinical experience that programs love looking at, because they would obviously prefer having someone who is familiar with the US healthcare system and how things work and has experience with the EMR in their hospital or in the US generally. It helps you get letters of recommendation that you need, very importantly, to apply into the match and submit with your application. It is the most ideal. We'll get into the situation that COVID has created with regards to USCE, but the most ideal and the best letters you can provide are US letters. USCE also lets you interact with the program and get to know the program better, and this is very important, especially if you're aiming for the top programs. One direct way you can let the program get to know you is going there for a rotation and being there in person, interacting with the residents, meeting the program leadership, potentially even meeting the program director and directly expressing your interest in the program. That is essentially the most direct way to do that. And when they meet you in person, it gives them a great sense of reassurance about who you are as a person and what you bring to the program. And finally, USCE are a very good way of networking with people, connecting with more people, and opening doors to more opportunities. So a USCE can lead to more USCEs. A USCE can get you publications and research experience that you might need. So the benefits of USCE are far-reaching, they're diverse, and if anyone can, in their best capacity, they should be doing their best to get some USCE. So before we dive into the topic, let's discuss the elephant in the room: COVID-19 and what it has done to USCE. That was a major issue last year. It's still a major issue this year with all the applicants, many not being able to find USCEs, many not being able to travel because of the travel restrictions. So what happens then? What if someone doesn't have USCE because of COVID? Well, let me reassure you a bit and tell you that programs understand. They know it's been a difficult year, 2 years, and they know that there were a lot of students that were not able to get USCE. They were not able to fly or travel or get visas to come to the US for USCEs. In fact, even a lot of US Med students were affected by the cancellation and suspension of USCE or elective programs. And let me also tell you from my personal experience, from people from my batch, my school, and even some other schools that I'm aware of, people did match without any USCE. There were people who matched without any USCE. There were people who matched with one USCE like me. So obviously everyone's application is different. That's not to say those people who matched without any USCE, potentially they had decent scores and they had maybe other things in their application that kind of supported their application in the absence of USCE. Everyone's application is different, but the point is there were people who did match without USCE. With that in mind, what I'll tell you is do what you can. If you're an applicant this year, do what you can to get some USCE. If you cannot, it is fine. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And if you find that the big programs, the big elective programs have canceled or suspended their offerings, look at smaller medical centers. If not, then look at private clinics that might be offering some observerships or some rotations. If not even that, and if you're not even able to travel to the US because of travel restrictions, not being able to get the visa, then there's tele-rotations. So as a last resort, do tele-rotations. And I have heard of people getting US letters from tele-rotations. So in the worst case scenario where you're not able to travel to the US, consider looking into tele-rotations. That could potentially be something that you would want to consider in case you are short of USCE. But even there, you would want to assess like what options you have in those tele-rotations and which ones are more highly recommended, which ones can get you a good letter, and which ones give you a generic letter. Now let's talk about the types of USCE. So if you look at this diagram I'm showing on the screen, you can divide clinical experience into two big categories: hands-on and non-hands-on. In non-hands-on, you have the well-known observerships, which have minimal patient contact. There's limited clinical exposure that you get, and least respected in the sense that it doesn't match up to the hands-on rotations, obviously. But definitely there is a very good opportunity to get LORs if you can demonstrate you are a capable medical trainee, medical graduate, and demonstrate a good fund of medical knowledge, and impress your preceptor enough to give you a letter. That is very possible. And then you have hands-on clinical experience, which has a few subcategories. The first one being elective. Elective by definition means something you do optionally, and it helps you build a connection, it helps you network with the program, and you are likely to get a letter if you demonstrate again good skills and good knowledge. Clerkships is a term used for more structured rotations that medical students do as part of med school. So usually these are done in the US system in the third and fourth year. In other systems like the one I trained in back in Saudi, we had clerkships in fourth and fifth year. And these are basically an essential and important part, a compulsory part of your medical education, and they go into your transcript. So if you were to look at your medical school transcript, you'll see clerkships mentioned there because these are essentially part of your medical education. And again, clerkships are more structured. Exams, they have their own final exams, they have other assessments and evaluations, and potentially longer than a standard elective, which is for 1 month. But obviously US clerkships are more difficult to get, and even if you do find US clerkships, there are potentially limitations, restrictions, and regulations from your home med school that you might have to meet. For example, your med school might say, sure, you can do this clerkship outside, but you'll have to come back and give the exam here, the final exam of this clerkship. So there are things like that you would want to look into with regards to your med school and how they handle people going out for clerkships. And then there's a term called sub-internship. So I'd say sub-internship is like an elective on steroids. It's potentially the best kind of elective you can get because by definition, you're working as a sub-intern, which means like a half intern. Intern in US terms means first-year resident. Keep that in mind. So a sub-intern is someone who, let's say, is doing an elective but is far more integrated into the medical team. So you're very much part of the team and you have very clear and important clinical duties and responsibilities. And obviously that translates into more involvement, more opportunity for your attendings to evaluate you and potentially give you a good letter of recommendation should you perform well. Externships, this is a term that is used for rotations for graduates. This is a far narrower field, much less common, and it's kind of like a gray area. Yeah, there are externships that offer some hands-on, but then there are rules to that, and externships may potentially be better than observerships, but then they can also get pretty expensive and far more expensive than what most observerships would cost. So you may ask, when should I do USCE? When should I do electives? Well, as a general rule of thumb, it is best to do electives as close as possible to your residency application, right? Kind of makes sense, because obviously programs, when you apply to them, they want to see your most recent demonstration of clinical skills and knowledge. So the more recent your clinical experience, the better. What that translates into is, for example, in our system, and even in systems like in India, Pakistan, a lot of places in the Middle East, we have an internship as part of the final year of our med school. And the way me and many of my colleagues approached this was that we planned the last few months of our internship as a time for us to do US clinical electives. How that helps is, first, when you apply to the match, that's going to be the most recent clinical experience you have. And secondly, you get to do some rotations back home, build a certain foundation of clinical skills and knowledge, and then you can go to the US and impress and do your best in those electives. So where should you do USCE? What kind of hospitals, what kind of institutions you should do USCE in? Now, people approach this in two ways. Either people want to do USCE in top, very well respected, prestigious institutions, or people want to do USCE in programs and hospitals where they may have a chance of matching. So these may not be the best and the top institutions out there, but the chance of an IMG matching there is very good. So again, that's also a smart approach. So I guess, it's nice to have a balance of both. You could do a rotation in a very good place where your chance of matching might be very low, but the letters you will get out of that experience will be very valuable. On the other hand, you can do several rotations in other hospitals which are more IMG friendly and where you may have a better chance of matching. And that is, I think, a smart investment. You go to a place where you have a good chance of matching, you get to know the faculty, get some letters from there, and come residency match, you stand a very good chance of matching there. So my thumbnail might have attracted a lot of attention from you guys, and you guys must be wondering, like, 4 letters from one USCE, 1 month of USCE, how is that even possible? Well, I can tell you that is very possible, and I'll cover that later in the video. So next, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a very comprehensive and a good list of clinical electives you can apply to today, and you can look them up and see what the applications are like. I have to give a shout out to my colleague and my homie Iyad Habib for making this list. Some of the details might be a bit outdated because this was made a while back, but I think it still is a very helpful list and will kind of help you plan your rotations, and you might even be able to apply to some of those. So if you want, you guys can pause the video, take a screenshot, and save for future reference. When talking about where can you find US clinical electives, where do you apply to clinical electives from? So the list will obviously help you guys. These are electives you can apply to directly. Most of those are ones you can apply to directly through the hospital application or the university or institution application. They have an application system on their website that you can apply to. Some of them offer the electives through this portal called the VSLO, the Visiting Students Learning Opportunities. This is something that is run by the AAMC, the American Association of Medical Colleges, and a lot of elective programs offer the electives through VSLO. But the thing here is that med schools need to buy a subscription for the students to be able to apply to these electives, for the med school to be part of the VSLO program. And I think that's very important. And you as a med student, if you're at a med school who doesn't have a VSLO subscription, I think it's something worth advocating for. Reach out to your med school leadership and tell them to get a subscription for VSLO, because it opens up many more elective opportunities for you guys. Mayo Clinic has now started offering electives through VSLO. Mayo Clinic used to have their independent application system until last year when I applied, but now they've also moved to VSLO, and so have Yale is there on VSLO, Boston University, West Virginia, and many other institutions that offer electives through VSLO. So I think it's definitely a very worthwhile investment for any med school if they want to give their students more clinical opportunities. So that's something you guys as med students can work with your med schools on. Another way of getting USCE is those private agencies, third-party agencies that help you get electives. None of them pay me, but some of them include AMO opportunities, med clerkships, ACE MD, and USMLE Sarthi, also something I've heard of. I would not recommend those as a starting point, but you have to make your own assessment. You have to, if possible, go through student review, student feedback, and see what students' experience was. The people who've done those before. Just make sure that you go through some reviews, see if people are sharing their experiences going through those companies and how their experience was. So try to get authentic one-on-one student experience for those who might have gone through those companies before you make a decision. Finally, another way of getting USCE is personal connection. So if you know someone in certain institutions, hospitals, in private clinics, that's something you can make use of. I think networking can go a long way in this process, and if that helps you get USCE, I think it's a very good approach. So again, personal connections can also help you get rotations, and these can also end up being pretty useful. Now let's talk about requirements for applying to electives. Now there are some more common requirements that a lot of programs have, and there are some more specific requirements that some electives need. One of them being step 1. So one of the key determining factors that will shape your decision of which electives you're going to be applying to is step 1, if you've done step 1 or not. Because there are some elective programs like the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic that require you to have step 1 when you're applying to them. So that is a distinction you have to make. That's something you have to plan for. So I see people making the mistake where they do not apply to any electives up until they're done with their step 1. And which I don't think is a good idea. You can start applying to electives even before you've done with step 1, and once you've done step 1 and you have the results, then you can apply to the electives that require step 1. Another requirement is TOEFL. So there are a lot of different elective programs, especially the hospital-based programs, that require you to have taken TOEFL, and some of them also have certain cutoffs for TOEFL scores. These are details you would find on their specific websites, but a lot of the elective programs like seeing a certain level of English proficiency from potential elective students. Many elective programs will also ask you for a bunch of documents. These include your updated CV, a letter of recommendation or 2 letters from your med school faculty or from your dean. They could ask you for your university transcript, your med school transcript basically. They may ask you for a letter of interest that kind of outlines why you're interested to do this elective. Some even require BLS, being BLS certified, which is basic life support. Programs also like asking for immunizations to just ensure that you have the needed vaccine coverage. And some will also ask for a drug screen, and again you will find details on the website as to what drugs they would want you to get tested for. And every place has their own kind of process in how you can get the drug screen, and so is the process for a background check, a criminal background check that some programs ask for. That's something usually that goes through the police in your area, so you would want to see what the process for that is in your country, in your state, and where you are right now. So some of the requirements that usually come up after you have been accepted is basically having a valid visa or showing proof of a valid visa, paying the program fee. If there was any program fee pending after acceptance, you have to pay that. Programs will also ask you for malpractice insurance, that is to cover you in case there is any patient harm while during your elective there. They may even ask for health insurance for you while you're traveling. And then they usually sometimes ask for HIPAA or OSHA certification. So basically HIPAA and OSHA are those online certifications you can get, HIPAA being for patient confidentiality, and OSHA being for occupational safety and health related stuff. So they just want to make sure that you are kind of aware of the basics regarding these topics before you do your elective. So essentially, I would highly recommend you start working on your requirements well before the time that you are planning to go, travel for these electives, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you are nearing the deadline for a certain elective program, but you're still waiting on a few requirements that you had to get done with. So the things that you can finish off early on, have them ready while you are studying for step one, or while you're still waiting to apply to the elective. If there are any requirements you can complete, do them. Sometimes immunizations take time. There are some immunizations that need a certain duration in between the two doses. For example, Hep B. So you want to plan those things to make sure you are able to complete all requirements, before the given deadline. So I want to wrap this video up with some personal advice and a few tips that you could keep in mind when doing electives. I last year matched with 1 month of electives, and I feel like that one elective was really the defining period in my residency application and my residency journey. Not only was I lucky enough to get 4 letters out of that 1 month, but also I got to know the program better. I got to prove myself. I got to show what I could offer to the program, and I got to interact with the fellows and the residents and other staff. And I'm very sure that they gave direct feedback to the program leadership about who I was and what I brought to the program and so on. So it's just to give you an example that one elective, one rotation can go a long way in securing you a match. So never underestimate what an elective can do to your application in a good way, and go in knowing that this is your chance to make it big. This is your chance to shine. This is your chance to prove yourself and who you are and what your skills and knowledge and interpersonal skills and qualities are like, and how much you can contribute to the program. Don't stop at the moment where you got accepted in an elective. No, that's where the work begins. That's where it all begins. So go in with the mindset of giving it your best. Give your best in any elective that you do. Be the first one to come, last one to leave. Be punctual, be on time. Get to know your patients as well as possible. If you're going to be presenting on rounds, if you're going to be in the team, rounding on the patients, take responsibility of a few patients. Ask your residents, your seniors, to give you a few patients that you could follow and present in rounds. No one's going to spoon feed you. No one's going to kind of guide you through it. You have to kind of carve your own path. You have to make yourself known, make yourself visible. Being a good person, trying to offer help, you could, although they probably wouldn't need your help, but it is a good gesture for you to mention to the residents like, hey, I'm free, I'm not doing much. If you need any help, just let me know. Another thing I feel is very important to mention is confidence. I feel us as IMGs, there's definitely a certain sense of culture shock in some way, or a certain adjustment period that we go through when we come to the US, especially for electives. But don't let that come in your way of shining and expressing yourself, expressing your personality and expressing your skills. Be confident, show confidence in who you are and what you can bring to the team. So be confident. I can't emphasize that enough. Confidence alone is, I think, half the job done, So confidence can go a long way in setting a good impression, in letting people know that you are, confident about your own skills, about who you are and why you're here. You're here with the purpose. You're here with the purpose of doing your best and getting those letters that you need, and in securing a very good match this season. So that should be your mindset, and something like a lack of confidence should not come in your way or should not be an obstacle in you getting there. Another tip I would give is ask questions and answer questions, but at the same time keeping in mind to ask reasonable, sensible, smart questions. They can again set a good impression. They can show your attendings that you are engaged, you want to learn, and answer questions and never hesitate. Look, I answered a lot of questions I was asked wrong, but at least I expressed my thought process and why I answered it that way. And I think that was valuable, you know. So if you have a certain thought process, feel free to share it. Do not hesitate. The second thing I would say is try to learn from everyone. The nurses you're going to work with, the attendings, the residents, the fellows, the med students. You may have fellow med students working with you. Learn from everyone and respect everyone. Another tip I would give you is ask to present. Ask your attending if there's a topic they would like you to present, and prepare a topic. You could make a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, or it could be like a presentation during the round, whatever it is. But ask that you want to and tell them that you want to present, that you would like to have a topic that you could discuss with the team. Another thing I would mention is, as I said, be nice with the residents and fellows because they give direct feedback to the faculty and the program leadership. But also, if you have the opportunity, also meet the program leadership. Try to meet the program director if possible, because I know that there are a lot of elective programs that kind of have that in the system where visiting students are able to schedule a meeting with the PD and are able to sit down. It's almost like an interview, and you are able to express your interest in the program, and they are able to know you and get to know you better on a personal level, and that can go a very long way in your residency application journey. Finally, one point that is also tied with getting letters of recommendation: you need to be strategic and smart with how you ask for letters. The timing should be right. You have to catch your attending at a good time, in a good mood, but also letting them know early enough in your rotation that you would really appreciate any feedback to improve. If there's any way you can improve, please, you should have them share that with you. And then obviously at some point you want to let them know that you would really appreciate if they could write you a letter. The best case scenario is when the attending offers to write a letter. That is the best case scenario, and you couldn't ask for anything more. And quite often the attendings will ask you for your CV, and they could ask you for certain points about your involvement during the rotation. Maybe they'll tell you to write a draft of the letter, that they would edit and build on and work on. All these are good signs, and they are your step towards getting those letters that you need. Now, talking about how I got those 4 letters. In my elective, the way it was said is that every week there was a different team, there was a different attending every week. So what that allows you to do is be with the different attending every week, which means 4 attendings in 4 weeks. And it's a short period of time, but if you do your best, you can definitely get a letter out of each week. And that is essentially the best case scenario. So if you're tight on time, you weren't able to get a lot of electives, one elective can truly change your application. That essentially brings us to the end of this video. I truly hope you guys benefited from the content. You found it relatable, and I hope you guys can implement some of the advice and tips I shared in your electives, and you succeed in getting the letters that you need. Again, if you guys have any feedback about how I can improve my channel, the content, and everything I'm creating here, please feel free to share it in the comments, in message, whatever way you feel is best. I feel like that's the only way for me to know that I'm doing something right, I'm doing something wrong, and there's something I can improve, because feedback is an important part of any process. We all should be in a constant process of improvement, and that shouldn't stop. Improvement should never stop. There's always room for improvement, and I truly believe in that. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care and goodbye.